it is Mrs. Jansen, and I'm really excited to do a project just with you. It's been fun that you got to join the second graders doing the Andy Warhol flowers. I hope you had fun doing that. But we are going to go back to some winter scenes, and we are going to be using our kind of a pen and ink and watercolor set of materials for this project. So the supplies that you are going to need for our winter scenes are going to be the special sheet of watercolor paper that I sent home that has this masking tape on it. You are going to be painting on the inside of this frame. You will also need your Crayola watercolors. I have, these are the watercolors that I have here, but you will need a pencil, potentially an eraser. You're going to need an ultrafine Sharpie marker. You will need paintbrushes. I have one that's a little bit bigger and one that's a little bit thinner. You will need paper towel, and you will need some water, which I have here in a jar that you can't see very well. Before we get started talking about our winter scenes that we will be doing, we are going to be doing some landscapes, and our landscapes are going to be snowy hills. We are going to be doing a beautiful sky with some watercolor techniques, which should be a lot of fun. But to inspire us, I wanted to first show you an old book that I actually had when I was a little kid, and it is called Seasons, and it's illustrated by Eloise Wilkins, who was a prolific illustrator back during her time, and that means that she liked to illustrate or color and create images for kids' books often. So I wanted to show you, there are all sorts of fun pictures in here, but we kind of wanted to stick with the ones that have to do with winter. I always like these. So we go from the fall and it starts to get cold. Bright blue weather is a good name for most of the weather in the fall, but there are fall rains too, and late in the fall, rain begins to freeze and make an icy fairyland. So we've got the beginning of winter, and then we have this beautiful winter illustration where we have kids outside playing in the snow and making snowmen. Winter days are cold, they are short too, and it is dark at bedtime, and it is still dark when it's time to get up. But when the sun shines on fresh snow, the days are very bright. And in winter, most trees are bare. Only evergreen trees stay green. Some birds do not go away for the winter. They stay through the time of ice and snow. And when snow covers the ground, it is hard for birds to find anything to eat. They will come to feeding shelves to get food. What I wanted us to notice in this illustration are the bare trees, because we will be drawing some silhouetted bare trees in our paintings, and all of the shadows that are created that we have from our trees, our cute little kiddos, our animals. We've got a dog and a cat and lots of birds, and even our snowman creates a shadow that we see in the snow, which is kind of gray. And that's important because we will be creating that in our painting. Next, I just wanted to show you these two other ones, and this one is so great because it shows you the marks that the footprints make in the snow. That's what we are going to be painting and drawing. It is fun to play in the snow. It is fun to make snow angels or a snowman. Just shoveling a path in clean, fresh snow is fun. And in this one, this snowstorm is a blizzard, and a strong wind is blowing the snow into big white drifts. The blizzard is not fun unless you are snug and warm indoors. And so we see all kind of the colors of the snowstorm, which are grays and whites, and they've used the gray to make it look like it's windy. In this one, this is very similar to what we will be doing. We're going to do a colorful background. We are going to have trees that go up into that background, and then we're going to be showing the footprints left behind of little kids going over hills. So really, this is our inspiration page for what we are going to be doing next. Then we are going to go to our paper. We talked a little bit about perspective, if you remember, when we did our snowmen. And we did our trees as they went farther back, they got smaller. And as they got closer up, they were bigger. That's one way to make things look closer and farther away. So we are going to make two hills in our painting. So I've got the one hill, and I think I might kind of pull that out. I think that was maybe not good. Then we want to have a hill off in the distance. So we are going to put another line that's going to connect to our first one and come up behind it. So we are going to be putting in some footprints that will go over the hill. And then we're going to do this all a really pretty sky. And we'll be putting some trees in, some nice pine trees, but we'll do those with marker. We want it to be like the sky that we have here, where we're going from kind of a lighter and a darker change, like the sun is setting and it's getting to be night. So you can either show a little bit of sun setting if you want, or you can put your moon up in the sky. So I want to mark my moon because I'm going to paint around that. So I'm just going to I'm doing a wedge, or as my young 5 said, a banana shape, Mrs. Jansen. So you could just do a full circle if you want your moon to be a full moon, or you can choose not to put a moon in if you don't want. I want to show you a little bit what our path is going to look like, where we're going to have footprints. And the ones that are going to be up front, let's just look at this again. We have all the footprints made here. And as they come up, we can see here's another snow angel they made. This one is much bigger, and we can tell that he's closer because it's so much bigger. But we can see that there were footprints and that they walked around. So this is farther away because it's smaller. And then as the footprints go over the hill, they get smaller and smaller. And that way we know that it's farther away. We are going to be doing that too. So we might and we'll do this with paint, but we're just marking it now so we can kind of see what that will look like, real light. I'm just doing little ovals. And you always want to have sets of 2, and we don't want them right next to each other, otherwise they wouldn't be walking. We have them slightly separated, so we've got this. Now we're going to have them show that they went down the hill and they came up. So we're going to put the next little footprints off to a little bit more off to the side. So they went down and they're coming up. And those are going to get smaller. So we're just going to set that aside for now. That just lets us know, Ron, where we're going to paint. We're going to concentrate now on our big sky. When we use watercolors, I don't know what you've done in kindergarten already, but we are going to do what you call a wash. And a wash is a way to cover up your painting with an even coat of color. So I'm getting my blues and purples wet, and I'm just dipping them in, getting them wet. And I'm starting to get them wet now so that as I start doing my wash, I will be able to pick more of this paint up as I go. I think that's just gray, so I probably won't use that. I'm going to extend, so if you have your Crayola palette, get your red wet too. Your red, and maybe you want to get an orange wet too. And these will just all mean that we'll have these colors. I'm even getting a little yellow wet. We're going to start at the bottom, down by our hill. I'm going to go in with a dark blue that I have, and I'm just going to go right above the line of my hill. You can see I'm going to go right above here, and I picked up another blue, and you can kind of see now I'm just pulling up some color. I'm getting my brush wet, and I'm starting to just get the paper wet. I've created a line where the water is going to stop. It's going to move, our paint will move around a lot, but now it won't go down into my hills. You can paint right up to the edge of your tape because that is going to protect the rest of our paper and create a border. Now I'm going to go ahead and get my paper above that blue wet. And you can see what happens. The paint that I've already put down starts to move up into the area that I've gotten wet. So I'm going to pull up my water. I'm going to keep moving it up. And you can watch kind of the rest of the water and the paint kind of pull up towards that. So I'm going to keep doing that. And have that, get that nice and wet. And I'm going to stop before I get to the moon. We'll work on that in just a little bit. So now I'm going to go in with my more blue, and I'm going to start dropping that in to my wet area. I want to go pretty dark, and I am going to include, I want some of it to be a little bit purpley. So because I don't have a purple, I'm going to use my red, and I'm going to start mixing that in with my blue. And you can see how that changes it. But as you can see, I need to keep adding pigment or paint. The watercolor is, and all of the water that I have in my paper is diluting the paint. That means it's not quite as saturated or as see when I make just little dots, over time they're going to keep spreading and getting bigger. I can leave them like that, or I can spread them out. And that, the more I move them around, the more they mix and the more they look like a purple. So I've got that nice purple, and you can see it moving up into the wet. All those little tendrils of color. I'm going to get that real close so you can see it. That is called bleeding. I'm going to clean my brush now, and I'm going to go with my red orange, and I'm going to do a layer of that. I don't want my orange that dark, but I am going to add it on, and you can see it just starts to spread. That red will overlap with the purple. It's going to go from the purple into the orange. You're going to want to be careful because if you move your paper around, these colors will keep mixing until they get kind of brown. So we don't want that to happen. We want to still be able to see some of the purple, still see the red and the orange, and like this beautiful change of color along the edge. We're going to be giving this an opportunity to dry. Let's say I used my brush and I pulled up a little purple up a little bit higher than maybe I wanted to. If I want to get rid of that, I take my paper towel, a part that doesn't have wet paint on it, and I just press that onto the paper. And you can see it's made all the paper go dry. And that is what we call lifting out. That's one way of kind of erasing when we're painting. So I'm just going to pull that. I'm going to make it wet again, but with my orange. I'm going to keep adding yellow. So now we're at the edge where I stopped adding water. I'm going to very carefully add water around my moon because I want my moon to stay just the color of the paper. And I will keep pulling the color that I have up. I'm going to get a little bit more yellow. You can see that my color from the side wants to keep following the water as I pull it up. Once you feel like this is pretty saturated, that means as dark as you want it to be, we're going to let it sit to the side. I'm going to add a little bit more blue. I'm going to play around and make the bottom just a little bit darker before I finish. Rowan, you can see our watercolor wash goes from dark to light. It's bleeding into each other. We're just going to leave it and not touch it, and we're just going to let it dry. We're not going to do anything on the bottom, and we're going to come back later. We're going to add our trees and our little footprints. So I will see you very soon. Welcome back, Rowan. I hope that your painting is all dried like mine is, and we are ready to do the next part of the work. So we have our winter scene that we started. We have this night sky, and it's interesting to see how my purple paint kind of went all the way up into the sky, which is interesting. With watercolors, you never know exactly what might happen, which is why a lot of people think they are fun to work with. Our inspiration, let's just take a quick look at that again. We are going to be putting in the shadows for the footprints in our snow, and we are going to be putting in some trees. And just like we read earlier, the trees are bare in the winter. So we're going to be doing trees that we just see the branches of. And I might be making ones that look a little piney. We're going to keep them pretty simple since I don't know how many trees you have drawn. So they won't be this complicated, but they're going to be up against our sky. I want you to take your pencil and I want you to put a mark off to the side of the left. So maybe take 2 fingers and put that up against the masking tape and put a little dot partway down from the top. It's about 3 or 4 fingers down if you're trying to figure out where to put it. You can just guess. This tree is going to come down and come on this first hill that we have. And we're going to keep our trees pretty simple. And then we're going to do at least 1 or 2 trees back here. So I want you to go ahead and just put a line that's going to come down. And I do want it to come down into the snow on the hill. I'm going to draw another line just kind of joining that up to the top. That's going to be our first tree. And we are going to make this into a silhouetted pine tree. So we're going to keep it pretty simple. We want to have our tree up front because we are going to work with perspective again, just like with our snowmen. We're going to have our tree up front be bigger than our tree that we're going to make back here. The next thing I think I want you to do then is let's put a dot. Now my moon is off to the side. My moon is about 2 fingers away, just like this was 2 fingers on the side. So I'm going to hold my fingers up against the side of the masking tape, and I'm just going to put a little dot there. This is lower. I just want it to be lower than this. And if you are uncertain, you can always get something that's straight. Like I can take the edge of my book and I can put it across the page at where this first tree is, and I can't even see the other one. If I bring it down to my dot, you can see I'll have this much. This tree is going to be this much taller. So I'm going to do another line, and it's going to come into the snow. Once we have this in, I'm going to do a dot next to that. That's a lot shorter, and I'm going to bring that down just to the edge. This one will bring into the snow. And maybe I will do one more back here along the edge. You can choose where you want to put your trees. They don't have to be in the same spot as mine. I want you to do at least 3 trees. I currently have 4. I might decide to do 5 because usually having an odd number is better. Once you have the pencil marks in, we're going to take, you can either take a regular Sharpie or a black Crayola. I have my Ultra Sharpie, and that's just a little too thin. We're going to go ahead and we're going to put a line in that's going to go over the paint and onto the snow. I went over that a couple times because this one is going to be up close, so it's going to be a little thicker. And I'm going to do that with these other ones so we can get a sense of our trees. This tree I'm just doing to the edge, same with this one, because we're saying that it's a little bit, those are even farther away. We have the one closest to us, which is going to appear to be the biggest. And then as they go farther back, we're going to make them smaller. The next thing you want to do is we're just going to put lines that are horizontal, and we're going to bring them. If you do it on one side, you're going to want to do it on the other side. They don't have to be at the exact same height, but we want them kind of, if you do one on one side, then we'll do another one on the other. You're just going to go back and forth. This is a very simple tree. And as they go, you get farther down, I want your lines to get a little bit bigger. And if you need to make some that are longer, as you're looking at it, you can go ahead and do that. So we've got that. We're going to do that on the other side. So I think I'm going to add a little bit more on here as well. But you definitely want the branches to go from smaller to longer. We're going to leave these just the way they are. We're just going to make these just a little complicated, and we'll add a couple of short lines that come out of the long ones that we just did. There's our tree silhouettes up against our beautiful evening sky. We're going to take our markers and trace the lines that we put in for the hills. But don't trace our footprints. I'm going to also trace my moon in the sky. I'm going to set my marker down, and we're going to go back to our paint now. For the paint, I'm getting my brush wet because I'm getting my black paint wet. Again, you can use your Crayola. If you don't have a black, you can use a dark purple, which would be very nice. We don't need a lot of paint. We are going to be doing the shadows for our footsteps. So I just kind of make a U, and we'll do those on the first hill. And I'm going to clean my brush, and it's just going to have water on it. And I'm just going to pull the watercolor that's already there back, like it's making a shadow. I'm just going to take the leftover paint I have from these and just go over those little footprints that we had drawn in, so you can see how they go across. I would like for you to take a white oil pastel, and you can use that to kind of make little spots in your sky. If your sky is a little darker than mine, you will probably be able to see them better. I'm going to let these be either kind of stars or almost snowflakes. It's okay that you can't see them that much because up on the top, because as the night is getting darker, you can't see the stars that are up where it's still light. You see them best down below. If your mom or dad have a white paint pen, you could also use that instead of a white oil pastel, or a white regular crayon would work as well. So we're just going to put some of those stars in. You want to take and put your name. So that's the last of the drawing part and painting part of our painting. You want to make sure that this is completely dry before you do the very last step of getting your painting ready to show off. You're going to take the tape that I put on your painting, and you're going to rip it off. And you can see what happens. It does pull up some of the paper, that's okay. But what it has done is we have this beautiful frame around our winter painting. And Rowan, there you have it. Our winter scene painting with little footprints in the snow, giving us again a good sense of how to make some things look farther away by making them smaller than they are at the lower part of our picture. So our trees get smaller and our footprints get smaller. This again was our inspiration, so we have our version. And of course, you got to do a watercolor wash. So I hope you had fun. I hope that once this is all dry and you take off your tape, that you feel pretty good about how beautiful your painting is. Post it on Seesaw, and I hope you frame it and put it somewhere in your house for your winter decorations. I can't wait to see it. Have a great week.